Welcome, everyone, to the Mile High Champions League weekly podcast. I'm your host, The Commish, and with me, as always, is the handsome and sumptuous Big Nolski. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm just fine for a lovely November evening here. And for those of you, just in case you're wondering, yes, you are hearing a dog chewing on a bully stick in the background. So in case you hear that, that's just Gatsby doing his thing. So I'm not chewing on a bull penis myself, but there is one being chewed on in this room.
Just not saying. This time. There have been other times. Noel just bull penis, yum yum. It's delicious.
Like Kobayashi.
Okay, let's get rolling. Week 8 MVT. Guess who's back? Brandon's back. Super freak. He's awesome. 183.1 to 133.7. Brandon got 183 points. Holy crap. I don't know if it's enough to save his season, but it's certainly enough to do him very well this week and get him the MVT. So second win of the season. He kind of took down Courtney in grand fashion, but that's what fantasy's all about. Week 8 MVP actually goes to Courtney. Russell Wilson, who got 50.2 points, just barely edging out LaShawn McCoy, who got 50. Good old Russell threw for 452 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only had 1 pick. So that's a heck of a week for him. Let's go on to some quick fantasy news. We'll go on to Noel Shithead and start talking about the review, preview, and start talking about the playoffs. So for fantasy news this week, I wanted to talk about Ezekiel Elliott. I think that maybe that was him barking in the background. Or maybe it was just a dog chewing on a bull penis. We'll never know.
Who rarely barks. That's weird.
Just want to say hello. Hello, fantasy people. Guess what? He was supposed to be suspended at the beginning of the year. And would you like to tell everyone, Noel, what's happening to him now?
Well, in this constant circus that is the legal wrangling going on here, his appeal has been overturned. His suspension has been reinstated, and now they're fighting like hell to try and get an emergency injunction to lift the suspension while another appeal is heard. So Kenfield, in a sense, after basking in the sun for once from the fantasy gods, is now all of a sudden having them turn on him just during the home stretch of the season. So yes, this is a combination of the fantasy gods turning on Kenfield and Roger Goodell being an absolute moron.
So he's out 6 weeks. He will be back in time for the Colorado Bowl. So Kenfield, you might be competing in the playoff bracket at that time, considering you've got a strong record so far at 6-2. So we'll see. But that is Ezekiel Elliott. He's finally serving his suspension. There you go. Now, Noel, we glossed over the shithead of the week kind of last week, but we're making up for it in grand fashion this week.
Yes, we are. So the shithead of the week this week is not someone who's necessarily an NFL player, owner, coach, or what have you, but he certainly has associated himself with the MVP, considering that his brand is the official pizza of the NFL. That would be Papa John Schnatter, who on a conference call today blamed the company's poor profits and stock price on the NFL's poor leadership in dealing with this isn't even correct, what they're calling the anthem protest. He's saying that the NFL is weak because they didn't nip this in the bud, and that is a quote. And because I don't want to get into anything hyper political here, but it's not even but. This is stupid because I don't know about you, Mike. I haven't had Papa John's in probably 4 or 5 years, and the last time was they bought it for us at the office. Papa John's has been losing market share for like the past at least half a decade because they've either been sticking by the same old better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's, while Domino's in particular has been catching up. Papa John himself has also been focused on ways to not pay his employees more or provide them with health care. So maybe you should take a look at the actual earnings quarter over quarter, which keep going down before you blame the NFL. So for that, Papa John Schnatter is the shithead of the week.
And boy, does he deserve it. He's just kind of a douche anyway, so I wholeheartedly agree with that shithead of the week. I can't imagine why he wouldn't deserve that, quite frankly. He's kind of one of those guys like Roger Goodell. He's just the perpetual shithead of the week. All right, no, thank you very much. Let's go into the review. Let's dive right into it. I will take the first game, which is, I would say, because it's such a high-scoring game, Courtney put up 133.7 to Brandon's 183.1. Total 16.8 points put up. Great week. Well, great week for Brandon, really. Courtney's team was led by Russell Wilson, who's got over a third of her points. So wasn't a hot week for her, even though she did score a respectable 133. As we mentioned, Russell Wilson, 50.2. But here's the rest of her team. Christian McCaffrey, 9. Amari Cooper, 9. What is going on with Amari Cooper, Noel? 9 points? Besides his blow-up week last week, 48 points. Back to his shitty, I guess, 2017 campaign.
Their whole offense just kind of seems like they've yet to really fire, except for that last week. It's really kind of been the defense for the Raiders is supposed to be okay, but the offense is supposed to carry them through games. So they haven't really done it on a week-to-week basis so far.
That's sad. Okay, Rob Gronkowski, next, 16 points. That's good. That's nice for Gronk. Duke Johnson, 11 points, probably would have done better. He's actually not doing too bad for running back this year. However, he is questionable. Looks like he exited the game towards the end, fourth quarter, with a head injury, so he might go into concussion protocol. We'll see. Stephon Diggs, 6 points. That is low. He's been averaging about twice that, 12 points. He's normally much better. So 6 points is his second worst game. That was surprising. Vikings D did very well against Cleveland, as you'd expect, 17.5. And then Kai Forbath, fourth, highest scoring kicker or player on her team, 15 points. Pretty impressive. 4 out of 4 field goals made and 1 extra point. Not too shabby. Now, Brandon, though, however, had a great game all around. Matt Ryan, 22 points. Jerick McKinnon, 31. That was a hell of a pickup. Keenan Allen, 10. Jimmy Graham, 19. DeAndre Hopkins, 42 points. Finally looking like DeAndre Hopkins and finally looking like the $29 Brandon's paid for him. 8 receptions, 224 yards. That means he got 28 yards per reception and a touchdown. Pretty damn good. Mohamed Sanu, 19. Eagles D against the shitty San Francisco offense, who are now, I think, going to be starting Jimmy Garoppolo instead of Brian Hoyer. We'll find out. And then Justin Tucker, 13 points. So very good game by Brandon. This is his second win of the season, as I mentioned.
Correction, if I will.
Oh, please go ahead.
So Brian Hoyer hasn't started for a few games. They've been going with third-round rookie. No one knows where he came from. CJ Beathard, who I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I tend to refer to him by those of you who are Frank Zappa fans as Captain Beefheart. Look that up; you'll enjoy it. But now Hoyer's been released, and they're saying this week Garoppolo will at least not start for this week. It'll be Beathard again, however you pronounce his name. So there's that. So if you've got if for whatever reason you have a 49ers receiver, don't have one.
If you have one, don't. Just don't. All right. Thank you, Noel, for that correction. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Looking at this, well, we'll talk about the standings a little bit later. So let's just hop on to the next game, my game versus the Rams. Take it away. Oh God, there's that picture. Go ahead, Noel.
Yes. Although you were projected to lose this game, but I must tout myself here. I did say that I could see you winning, but I was not very convincing either way. You did beat the violating Ram Lions soundly here, Mike, with and you even had a player that not only got you 0 points, but I haven't seen the updates, but they were talking about the knee injury for Zach Miller being so bad that they were worried he might lose part of his leg.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's horrible.
Also, in a not to downplay the significance of the injury, but we all hope he's okay. Former VP of officiating, 2 of them have said that should have stood as a touchdown where he dropped it when his knee went away. So, Mike, that would have gotten you at least 8 points right there. So there's a moral victory in your victory, I suppose. But from there, it's just solid and awesome scores. 25.2 points from Josh McCown. Who the hell would have thunk it? Why would you ever start a Jets quarterback? Well, because your quarterback's hurt. So there's that guy. Jordan Howard, 28 is, I was about to say, it's not too bad. That's pretty damn good. I think most of us would enjoy getting 28 points out of our running backs. Jarvis Landry is still kind of found his way, but he still appears like he's not there. And there was rumors that at least Odell Beckham Jr. was pushing the Giants front office to trade for him, but that never happened. Zach Miller we discussed. Melvin Gordon is just going to be a stud because the offense goes through him for the LA Chargers. Chris Thompson, 22 points. Nothing to shake a stick at, but I think I don't have the average in front of me. I would imagine that's below average for him so far this season. Your kicker, just dialing it in. Not a lot of points, but 10 points from your kicker. You'll take it every time. 14 points from your defense, who you got, I don't want to say you got lucky, but you played that weird game where you had two players on offense going against your defense, and you still came up doing well for it. To the Rams here, Lion, disgusting. Kurt Cousins had himself a kind of an off game, 16.2 points, just humdrum, kind of what you expect from almost like a backup quarterback. Devontae Freeman kind of had the game I thought he might have, where he split a lot of carries with what's his face, Tevin Coleman, and ended up. In fact, he's now questionable going into next week with 11 points. Michael Thomas had a better game I would have thought with 14 points. Zach Ertz had a below-average game for him with 13. Doug Martin, a good game, really, but just I don't know what the hell is up with Tampa Bay's offense. We know their defense is terrible, but they only scored 3 points on the day against the Carolina defense that really isn't that good. So 15 points is pretty good from him. Deion Lewis scored more points than I thought. Jake Elliott as a kicker. And then his Bengals defense actually wasn't doing that great until Jacoby Brissett, or Brisket, if you will, threw a pick six in the fourth quarter, which gave the game to the Bengals. So,
yay.
Great win for you here, Michael. And there's a lot to like on your team. And then let's look at the benches here just to see what's coming up. Yeah.
Did you see his bench?
Deshaun Watson? Yeah.
Sucks, because that's one of those things, all you can do in a given week is try to start your best roster. Mm-hmm. That's it. I mean, you can't, like Zach Miller going out sucks. I actually really feel for him because that could be a career-ending injury. So don't denigrate the 0 points. But it's one of those things where you kick yourself, because if he had started Deshaun Watson, he would have won.
But I know from experience, I have a hard time trusting rookie players, especially quarterbacks. So, Larson, at least from me, you're going to get no second guessing here. I would have done the same thing. I would have started Cousins instead of Watson. Plus, I mean, that's Seattle's defense. They're supposed to eat quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks, alive. So, no one really saw that shootout coming. But yes, great win for you, Michael, here. And maybe you should consider changing your picture there, Larson. I don't know. Maybe the scary lion ram thing is not helping you out. I don't know.
Maybe it's bad karma. We'll find out. Maybe if he changes it, we'll see. If he changes it this year or next, we'll see if it has any impact. All right, thank you, Noel. Let's go on to the next one. Vanessa against Josh. I called it the fact that he will probably win this week, and lo and behold, did he. Not by a big margin, 114-91. It wasn't an impressive victory, but it was impressive in the fact that he has tied a record that has stood since 2008. Josh is now on an 8-game winning streak. He has yet to lose in the 2017 campaign, looking phenomenal. We'll talk about in the preview if he can actually best the record, go 9-0, but let's just look at this week for now. So, Vanessa, as you were saying, Noel, there's something going wrong in Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston, 8.2 points. I don't like him character-wise, but I like him as a football talent. 0.2 points, you'd expect a lot more from a high-quality player. Now, granted, he did, I believe, he went out during the game. And so it helps, explain some of that low point. But even still, you'd expect more from Jameis Winston. Kareem Hunt, silent game against the Denver defense, 14 points. Actually, his worst game of the season so far. He's been averaging 33, almost 34. So very mundane game from Kareem Hunt. Crabtree, 13 points, not too bad. That's exactly what you'd expect from him. He's been averaging 13 points. Cal Rudolph, 14. This guy is looking good. I like him as a tight end, always overlooked. Jay Ajayi, as last game as a Miami Dolphin, only got 9 points. Maybe he'll do better in Philly now that he's been traded. Tyler Kroft, again, I don't know why she started a tight end in this slot, but she did and got 9 points from it. Broncos D, 13, and Hauschka, 11. Not a good showing by Vandy this week. It's never good when you don't break the 100-point mark. Let's look at Josh's team. Dak Prescott, a very, very boring 10.8 points. What happened? How did he only get 10.8 points? I tell you why. He only completed 14 of his 22 passes for 143 yards and no touchdowns. Blah. That's how you score 10.8 points as a quarterback. Mark Ingram, though, made up for it, 25 points. That's looking good. A.J. Green, 11. Jordan Reed, surprise, surprise, injured and out. Only got 1 point. Brandon Cooks, New England wide receiver, 7 points. Tevin Coleman, that guy's a stud, 19 points. Panthers D, 26 against Tampa Bay. They rocked their world. They only allowed 3 points and then got 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. So they were on their game. He's actually the best scoring player for Josh this week. And then Matt Bryant, 14 points for kicker, not too shabby. So he should be very happy that he pulled off a win with his star player Todd Gurley riding Pine, and Devonta Adams, same thing. He's a pretty good wide receiver. So Josh advances to 8-0, clear number 1 in the Atlantic Conference, clear number 1 in the Mile High Champions League. Vanessa loses her second in a row, 4-4 on the record. Let's head over to the Doom Givers.
So just as Kenfield is starting to feel his fantasy strength here and trying to project some power onto the league, which he certainly did this week with a 169.9 victory over Nick's 1.21 gigawatts. JJ Watts, just kidding. Haha. 135.6 points. And for Kenfield here, again, there's a lot to like, but that looming Ezekiel Elliott suspension, because that's taking basically a possible 45 points like he scored this week out of Kenfield's basically firepower for the time being. But I mean, Tom Brady is not, for the past few years, Tom Brady really hasn't been, the superstar fantasy player you'd think, but he's just consistent and consistently good. 26.4 points. Antonio Brown, down game, which will happen sometimes, and that's why you saw a big game from Juju Smith-Schuster. But Antonio Brown will bounce back. Also down game from Jason Witten, 6 points. Demaryius Thomas and the whole Denver offense struggled because I don't know what the hell Trevor Siemian was looking at. As we talked about last week during the podcast, Alex Collins, Jesus Christ, 31 points. I don't think anybody saw that coming, but he looks to be the feature back in Baltimore right now. Vinatieri saw 11 points from, that's very, very good from a kicker. And then just a great performance from the Chiefs defense, who just took advantage of whatever the fuck Trevor Siemian was looking at, which I don't know, and threw 3 picks to them, including, was it a fumble or was it a interception was returned for a touchdown? But either way, a touchdown on defense, plus 2 forced fumbles, 3 sacks, 19 points allowed. And you might go, wait, why did Kenfield have the Seahawks defense on his bench? Even though they let up 38 points, they still would have given him 18 points. Now, on to Nick's team. Solid game, Carson Wentz, 25.6. Wendell Smallwood, as I had predicted, or I think you predicted, one of us predicted. Not sure why Nick started him. He got 2 points. As you predicted, Mike, Tyreek Hill had a down game with 3 points. Travis Kelce, huge game. Huge from a tight end, 28. Des Bryant is kind of just, he doesn't seem to be, either he's not the same player he once was, where he's not the same player without Tony Romo, 7 points. Chris Hogan was doing all right, but went out, I think, fairly early with an injury, 11 points. He's doubtful for next week. When, apart from almost the two biggest stars for Nick this week was his kicker, Harrison Butker. Is that it? Burker? I should zoom in. Whatever. I'm not going to check it out. 21 points. And I was actually texting Mike about this after he finished the podcast last week. It was like, well, I don't think the Ravens are going to get any more points on defense. I was wrong. Finished with 38 points. So the star for Nick this week was his defense, which I've had this season too, but it's usually not indicative of good things. So, tough loss and uneven loss, really, when it comes to performance for Nick here. Good win for Kenfield, but as he was texting me this week, it's going to take him some waiver wire magicianry, which isn't a word, to fill in for the loss of Elliott if the suspension is indeed upheld again. But for now, congratulations to Kenfield, who is cruising along in first place in the Pacific Conference.
Indeed, this is certainly a fantastic start to Kenfield. Not start, really. We're in the final third of the season. Can't say start. Definitely a tremendous go for Kenfield. I don't know if I've seen him do this well ever. So congratulations to you. Now let's go on to the next game. Both of these teams heading into the week were 3-4. And I said, not necessarily that whoever wins would be improve their playoff picture so much as they would help knock the other person out of the playoffs. So it's not exactly that
Hooray.
bad. Yeah, sorry, no, it's not exactly that bad yet, but it's definitely not. With 4 games left, you can only really afford to lose one more before it starts getting into oh shit mode. So let's look at your game. You had a good game. They had 126.1 points. That's nothing to be disappointed about. Certainly losing is not fun, but that is a good score overall. Cam Newton, 20.6, seems to be, and maybe not his superstar form like he was in weeks 4 through 6, but certainly better than he was in weeks 1 through 3. 20.6 points, not too bad. Joe Mixon, 13, pretty good. Doug Baldwin, 11. It's a little subpar for him, especially coming off a nice week last week. Jack Doyle, excuse me, what? 32 points from a tight end, 12 receptions. That means he was pretty much the number 1 targeted receiver on the Colts for Jacoby Brissett. 121 yards and a touchdown. That is phenomenal. The old number 1 player, 32 points, tight end. You don't see that very often. Lamar Miller, 26 points. That was pretty darn good. He's hurt, though. Knee injury. I don't know if it'll affect him this week. Maybe that's why he's a little – could have gotten more, perhaps. But 26 points is certainly something to be proud of for him. Devin Bunches of Funches, 3 points. Devin, what the hell? Worst game of the season when Noel needed you. Devin, I'm just disappointed in you. Shaking my head if you can see me, which you can't because this is over the internet and only audio. Falcons, 15.5 points. That's good. Graham Gano, 5 points. That's not that good for a kicker, actually. You want your kicker to get at least north of 5. 6 or better would be good. Anything in the double digits would be great, but that just means that he didn't really participate much. He made 1 field goal and 2 extra points. Okay, whatever. Let's look at Molly's team. 147 points. That's a great week. Although, surprisingly, didn't come from her great quarterback, Drew Brees, 15.6 points. Rather muted. Didn't throw a touchdown, and that's the first time he hasn't thrown a touchdown in I don't even know how many games. It's the first time he hasn't thrown one in this season, but he's definitely one that you should expect at least a touchdown a week. Alvin Kamara, 18 points. That's pretty darn good. Julio Jones continues to ride the struggle bus pretty hard at 10 points. Cameron Brate, not bad for tight end at 10 points. LeGarrette Smoke a Blunt, 16. That's pretty good. Will Fuller the 5th, or Will Fuller 5. 36 points. I was giving him a lot of shit because of his name, just because I love Will Fuller V or Will Fuller 5 or Ben Folds 5. He got 5 receptions, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns for 36 points. Her best scoring player. Second best, Bills D against Oakland. Only allowed 14 points, which is, that's good. Not great, but good. 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. 7.5 points. That's pretty good. And then Steven Głaskowski, 14 points. This guy is just fantasy gold. So congratulations, Molly, on your win. You're 4-4. Noel, unfortunately, you're 3-5. But with the final third of the seasons, nobody is out yet. Let's wrap up the review with Charlie versus Ben.
All right. And this is another week of I don't know what to make of Ben's team because I usually, with what's on his team, would expect him to win, but he got trounced mighty easily here by Charlie, who won 155.5 points to Ben's paltry 89.4, which, as you said, Mike, if you fail to crack 100 points, you're almost always going to lose. So breaking it down here, Tyrod Taylor, good game, not great game. 21 points. He only threw for 165 yards. We got a touchdown and a touchdown on the ground. So that's where Tyrod made Charlie his points this week. LaShawn McCoy, though, 50 points, which he's just been solid for Charlie this I think this whole season, except for I think he may have gone out hurt early in the season because that tends to happen to him. Jeremy Maclin, after doing nothing last week before, I should say, had 14 points, which is obviously a big rebound. Jared Cook, again, a solid pickup for Charlie here, just who I don't think most of us would have even thought to pick up with 9 points. Frank Gore bouncing back 21. James White, not a bad start considering that Charlie's other choices were essentially bye-week players, which, oh, Jesus Christ, Charlie. You kept a kicker on your roster for the bye week. It's not even a top 10 kicker. Damn it, Charlie. Anyways, from there, Matt Prater scored 18 points. Speaking of kickers, he scored all of the Lions' points on Sunday night. And to put this in perspective, I read something where basically the Lions gained the most offensive yardage without scoring a touchdown in like NFL history. So good start there by Charlie, but maybe get rid of Mason Crosby. And also get rid of the Packers defense. Why'd you keep doing them? And on
was that no? Could you say that a whole lot louder?
Yes. Get rid of the Packers defense, Charlie. Now. Just do it. And from there,
Butt liquor. Our prices have never been lower.
If
you don't know what we're talking about, just Google butt liquor, The Office.
What? Just kidding. That's also from the same thing. Anyways, but to Ben here, none of his players really hit. Le'Veon Bell, 21 points, which, as we've said, is good for running back, but Ben paid top dollar for Le'Veon Bell, so that you want more from your top dollar guys than 21 points. Rivers, who I used to say was money in the bank as far as consistency, maybe not so much, 14.4 points. Mike Evans, I'm going to throw this one up to you, Mike. What do you even make of this guy? I had him once, and it was kind of the same thing where, like, you keep expecting him to do stuff, and he occasionally does. Most of the time, it's this. It's this 11 points. You're like, cool. Would you say it's a fair assessment of Mike Evans?
Yeah. Because I can't say under the radar. He's definitely not, because he's kind of
he's their guy.
He's their guy, and he's a household fantasy name, but it's kind of like, yeah, I can see him scoring that. He's no Megatron. He's no Dez. He is their guy, but is he better than, like, even Emmanuel Sanders? Maybe a little bit, but he's not worth, like, ridiculous sums of money, nor is he worth the kind of fantasy praise he gets.
So from there, Safarian Jenkins, who I actually thought had a better week, 7 points. Not bad for a tight end, not good, though. Carlos Hyde, really down week for him, 11 points. He is really the only offensive player you want to own, for lack of a better term, on the 49ers roster. But it's just tough when opposing defenses know who your best player is. They're going to take that away. And when CJ Beathard is your starting quarterback, who, just a quick bit of trivia here, most of the draft pundits did not predict that Beathard, who was a quarterback at Iowa would even be drafted, much less drafted in the 3rd round. Moreover, would be starting in the NFL as a rookie. And yeah, Mike, I'll send you a link to post with the podcast. It has a bunch of fun GIFs of how terrible Beathard is. Then back to the Lions. They posted some graphic about this on Sunday Night Football where something about how Matt Stafford has only had a 100-yard rusher like some ridiculously low amount of time. So that just shows you how bad the Lions aren't running the ball. I don't know if they're just not committed to it or just terrible at it. And then from there, his kicker's a kicker. His defense was underwhelming against said Detroit defense, which didn't score a touchdown. And there wasn't much help for Ben on his bench. And, some fantasy news too. So on his bench, Ben has Kelvin Benjamin, who last week was playing for Carolina, but will now be playing for Buffalo for the rest of the season. So keep an eye out for that there, Ben. So good one for you here, Charlie. Now you and I are both, I guess, just fighting each other for last place in our division or conference, but big win. But as I said, dear Lord, why 2 kickers? Why 2 defenses? I did one, but don't do both.
Maybe he's a prepper.
The Packers defense.
You know how preppers like hoard a lot of stuff? Maybe he's just prepping for a time where there's a drought of defenses and kickers.
A drought of bad defenses?
We're running out of shitty defenses. Don't worry. We can all go to Charlie's house. He's got plenty to go around for all of us to partake in shitty defenses and kickers. Okay, thank you. No, let us go on to the next part of our story here. It is the playoff outlook. Now, let's look at that. Let's look at the schedule. Actually, let's not look at the schedule. Let's look at the standings. Right now, Prince Kenfield is ahead. He's leading right now 6-2. Courtney is winning. We share the same record, 5-3 apiece, but she's got over 130, about 128 more than I do. So she's clearly ahead. As long as we'll have the same record, she'll be the number 1 conference. Got AJ Green Lantern. I mean, come on. The only way he will get knocked out is if Molly wins 4 games, he loses his 4 games, and Molly somehow makes up the 238-point deficit that he currently has above her. He's got the third most, points for so far at 1,137. 1,137. That means he's been averaging 142 points per week. In case you're wondering, number 1 is actually Senior Kenfield, 1166, averaging 145, almost 146 points per week. So it's fair to say that Josh will win the Atlantic Conference and have a berth in the playoff. Now, nobody is mathematically eliminated at this point. Even there's 2 teams, the Rams and the Spartans, that are 2-6. However, they are not mathematically eliminated. They may have a tough road to hoe, but that does not mean that they are out of the playoff runnings yet. This week, perhaps, if one of them loses, they might get knocked out. Next week, for sure. But right now, every team has a shot to make the playoffs right now. It's pretty remarkable to consider that, considering there's an 8-0, a 6-2, and 2 2-6 teams. But that's the way that the cookie crumbles as it goes. So let's now go on to just a quick look at the preview. First, let's talk about the bye weeks. It's Chicago Bears, Cleveland Browns, as if that made a difference, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, New York Giants, and then Tennessee Titans. So they're all on. But it's a big bye week.
Are you sure about Tennessee? I think they may have been on bye week last week.
Nope, you're right. I apparently have trouble reading. I meant to say Pittsburgh, that city that's in another state north of it. So
it's like Tennessee, though.
It's the Tennessee of Pennsylvania. It's always cloudy in Pittsburgh. So, all right. Thank you, Noel, for that. I accidentally typed in everyone. I was looking at the bye week schedule, typed in everyone except for that one. So I appreciate the correction. That's twice. You saved my ass there, Noel. Thank you. So Chicago, Cleveland, LA Chargers, Minnesota, New England, Pittsburgh. If you got anybody on them, go ahead and bench them, obviously. And there's actually a lot of fantasy implications there. So it'll be a fun week to watch. Now let's go on to the preview of this week. Starting off the preview, we have the Spartans and the Rams, both 2-6 teams in the Mountain Conference. These guys need to fucking win, or they're pretty much done for. And let's look at both of these teams here. So, oh God, what to say about these two? I know. Thank you, Noel. I appreciate you laughing because it's kind of hard to analyze these guys. I mean, look at Larson's projections. We're by the way, I guess I should announce when we're recording this so it'll make a little bit more sense as to what we're talking about. The last couple of weeks we've been recording on a Thursday, so we've been doing it basically live as the games are playing. Tonight, it's a Wednesday, so we have the projections up. Nobody's been playing it, so nobody's been scoring. Projections have Larson as a 20-point favorite, 19.5, 140 points to Brandon's 120.6.
Wow.
Now, I think what's more important to look at, bye weeks and injuries. Questionable for Larson, Emmanuel Sanders, Jimmy Graham, both questionable for Brandon. Bye weeks, Keenan Allen, Jared McKinnon for Brandon, and Adam Thielen, Dion Lewis for Larson. If you go down, if you're still able to see this by the time the podcast come out, you see the points at the bottom there is very erratic. I don't know, just looking at that alone, who's going to win. So maybe a position-by-position report. So we got Matt Ryan versus Deshaun Watson. I'm going to just right off the bat give it to Deshaun Watson. The guy is on, and it's going to take something serious to quench that because he's putting up 35.7 points to Matt Ryan's 21.2. I don't care. I mean, you throw in the fact that Matt Ryan's going against 6th best Carolina defense, Deshaun Watson going against 26th Indy defense, pretty much has that in the bag. So Deshaun Watson. Devonta Freeman is questionable. I don't know. Is he going to play? I don't know. It's limited in today's practice. He is good. 13th best running back against Adrian Peterson, who had a really stellar week 6 and a really shitty week 7, so I'm not entirely sure how to analyze him. I guess we could look at defensive matchups. Devonta Freeman going against the 2nd best, the worst San Francisco defense against the run. I'm going to go with Adrian Peterson there. Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas. Now, I like Emmanuel Sanders more, not because he's a Bronco. I'm not a homer. I am, but not that much to sway my opinions here. But I think that no, this is gonna be my bold call of the week. I was gonna say Michael Thomas. I'm gonna take a step back, even though Michael Thomas is fantastic. He's the 13th best wide receiver so far. I'm going to guess if Emmanuel Sanders plays, because he is questionable, with Brock Osweiler starting for the Broncos this weekend, he will throw to Emmanuel Sanders, and Emmanuel Sanders will outperform Michael Thomas. That is my bold prediction for the week, which in bold prediction in sports entertainment lingo means pretty much bullshit because it's like, today I'm going to win the lottery. Hooray, I didn't. Oh, I guess it was a bold prediction. So my bold prediction is Emmanuel Sanders outperforms Michael Thomas. Zach Ertz versus Jimmy Graham, assuming Jimmy Graham plays. I'm still going for Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz is phenomenal. He's really good. Both of them are playing against very, very shitty defenses. It's tough to say because Denver is one of them. Zach Ertz is playing again. Jimmy Graham going up against Washington. DeAndre Hopkins versus Golden Taint. I have to go with DeAndre Hopkins. That dude is looking phenomenal right now. The interesting thing about that, who's throwing to DeAndre Hopkins, Noel?
That would be Deshaun Watson.
That's right. And who owns Deshaun Watson?
The keeper of the grotesque lion ram.
That's right. Larson does. So when Larson scores, assuming DeAndre Hopkins is the guy that scores, Brandon scores. I should say that in reverse. Whenever Hopkins scores, Larson scores, and vice versa. So much scoring. Bow, chicka, bow, wow. So it's going to be, I have to give it to Hopkins here. Not only is he a better player, but he's actually handcuffing Larson here because Deshaun Watson clearly has a favorite target, and his name is, it rhymes with DeAndre Schmopkins. All right, let's look at the next one. Next, second flex spot, Mohamed Sanu versus Doug Martin. I like Doug Martin more. I don't really like either of these guys, quite frankly. If I had to pick one, I'd pick neither. But if I had to pick one of these guys, I guess I'll go with Doug Martin because he's going against an easier New Orleans defense. Eagles versus Denver and Bengals versus Jacksonville. Yeesh. God, I have to go with the Eagles. It pains me. It pains me to say this. The Broncos are the worst offense for fantasy purposes against the defense right now, so I have to give it to the Eagles. Greg the Leg versus Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott's good, but Greg the Leg is better. Boy, this is a tough one. I'm not going to cop out. I'm not going to say it's going to be a toss-up, even though I wholeheartedly believe it's going to be. And I'm going to say this game belongs to the Parker Rams. I think that Deshaun Watson has so much potential there. Even if he does throw to DeAndre Hopkins, he's just going to, as if we found out from Will Fuller the fifth, afraid to spread the ball around. So I think this is Larson's game. Let's go on to the next one, Noel. My game versus Courtney.
All right. So I'm noticing already here, Mike, that like many of us have been experiencing recently, this is your own bye-week extravaganza.
Courtney's too.
Wow, that's not fun. But right now, and I would imagine you might look at making some adjustments here, Mike. I'm not sure, just because I don't understand why they have TJ Yeldon at 0 when he's supposed to be active and possibly the second running back behind Courtney's Leonard Fournette, who is back after an ankle injury. But right now, Mike, you are projected to be buying Courtney some Chick-fil-A. Is that right? I always mess that up.
No, you're absolutely correct. If
right.
She wins, she gets Chick-fil-A. If I win, I get salmonella. I get Chipotle.
But they fixed that, right? Maybe, or have they? Who knows?
They fixed it, and then it came back. They're like,
right.
No, we're fine. And then it came back again. They're like, well, fuck you. Just eat her or don't. I don't care. Get salmonella. What the fuck do we care?
And it's easy to see now why, I guess, from the projections, why maybe that's the case. Apparently, Effentard believes that Russell Wilson has turned the corner completely and is back to his self from 2 years ago and will garner Courtney almost 30 points this week against a, let's be honest, fairly shitty Washington defense. But who the hell knows? Sometimes he goes away. Sometimes he goes nuts like he did last week. I don't know. And then I would not have thought this, that Josh McCown is currently the 9th ranked fantasy quarterback in our league. Josh McCown playing for the vaunted New York Jets, who before the season were basically accused of willfully tanking to get a higher draft position, but right now are currently somehow in playoff contention. I don't understand it. I think Effentard's right here to give it to Russell Wilson. Obviously, Russell Wilson is number 5 ranked fantasy player. Plus, it's Russell Wilson. Josh McCown is Josh McCown. Chris Thompson, I think that's underrated. The 14.9 points. Yes, Seattle is tough to run against, but that's not where Chris Thompson makes his points for you, Mike. It's the PPR stuff. And Chris Thompson will get his touches because we know the Skins are going to be using a lot of screens to try and keep Kirk Cousins upright and just get the ball in his hands. From there, oh man, this is a tough one. Amari Cooper, Jarvis Landry. So much upside for both, but so much disappointment for both at the same time. I see Effentard has a slight edge of 14 points to Jarvis Landry against Oakland's bad defense, and Amari Cooper's going up against Miami's equally bad defense. So I think that's kind of a wash. Evan Ingram has come on late like gangbusters versus Vernon Davis, who with Jordan Reed out should play a bigger role, but really hasn't this season. He really hasn't been the same since several years ago when he was still a 49er. I think Evan Ingram gets the nod here, as Effentard says. Alshon Jeffrey, as with almost all the receivers for Philadelphia, because they have a glut of them, it's going to be either he's going to fill it up for you, Mike, or he's going to probably get maybe a couple catches and lucky to get out of single digits. So I think Christian McCaffrey, again, as Evan Tart says, has the edge here. This one, though, as I said, TJ Yeldon, I don't know what to think because he had a huge week a couple weeks ago. Derrick Henry should have had big games with DeMarco Murray being hurt, but Murray looks like he's back. So I don't know if I trust that 13.3 projection for Derrick Henry either. So I'm going to call that one a toss-up. Lions defense, which is favored, I do like them against not only just the Brett Hundley-led Green Bay Packers, but the Lions defense has given even Aaron Rodgers fits in the past. So I think that's a good start. 49ers defense against Arizona. I get the matchup because it's, what's his face? Whoever the hell Carson Palmer's backup is, which I should know because he's a Michigan State player. And my dad loves Michigan State because he went there. Crap, I can't remember his name. But that's a good start. But I obviously Lions there. Your kicker is not favored because Ryan Suckup is the number 2 kicker, who had been in the role before his bye week. But I like Will Lutz against Tampa Bay over Ryan Suckup against Baltimore's defense, which is they can give up big points, but they can also be pretty good. So, Mike, I think you'll be buying some Chick-fil-A this week.
Yep.
But I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be closer than the projection has it. But yeah, as you said, both of you are suffering from some massive bye week lackings here. Jordan Howard, Melvin Gordon for you, Isaiah Crowell, whatever. And Gronkowski, and the Vikings defense is, even though they're the 12th ranked defense, nothing to shake a stick at as far as the really just shittiness of competition so far in the NFC North. So, Mike, I like Courtney's chances here, but that's not to say that Effentard isn't wrong, because oftentimes they are.
Absolutely. His name, by the way, is Drew Stanton. I just Googled it.
Okay.
And do you know who their third string is?
I do. It's Blaine Yo Gabba Gabba Gabbert.
That's right. Yes. Which just means that everyone is praying in Phoenix that he doesn't go down, Drew Stanton, that is, because who the hell wants Blaine Gabbert to come in? That's not a good thing. Okay, let's talk about potential history being made here in the next game. Josh versus Kenfield here. The line has Josh favored to 114, but as we saw, Kenfield has been scoring the highest amount of points so far through 8 weeks. Now let's break down these teams to see, is the line correct, or is Kenfield due perhaps to upset this 8-game winning streak? So in quarterbacks, we have Eli Manning, well, shit, against Dak Prescott for Josh. So I have to give it to Dak Prescott because he's going against KC's not porous, but not great defense against the quarterback. So Eli's been averaging 21 points a game, Dak 28. Got to give it to Dak. Mark Ingram against Alex Collins. I thought Alex Collins was a tremendous pickup. Who would have thought? Oh, wow. Click on his picture, Noel. Holy shit. Striking. That looks like Marshawn Lynch's picture way back in the day when he looked like, holy cow. I never forget, Adam said he was like the ugliest person he's ever seen. Alex Collins is not, but he might be number 2. Okay. Alex Collins is really good. I thought that was a huge call playing him last week, considering he's only the 26th best running back. Not entirely awesome, but he is going against Mark Ingram, who is awesome. He's the 9th best. He's been averaging 23.3 points. Got to give it to Ingram. And Ingram's running against a better defense, too. 16th ranked Tampa Bay versus the 9th ranked Tennessee. Got to give it to Ingram. AJ Green versus Sterling Shepard. I guess Kenfield's going for the boost him.
Everyone else is hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Considering he's like they're like, hey, Waterboy, guess what? You're a wide receiver now. He's like, but coach, I'm blind. I don't care. You're better than Bim. Go in there. So he's gonna. This is gonna be interesting because Kenfield's going to be without Kenfield's going to be without Antonio Brown, Tom Brady, and Ezekiel Elliott this week. So his 45 points he's been averaging, this may not be the week he gets that. So I have to give this one to AJ Green just because I don't think Sterling Shepard, even with the potential multiplicative effect of having a quarterback wide receiver on your team, I just don't see much happening there. OJ Simpson versus OJ Howard versus Jason Witten. This is a great handcuff because if Dak Prescott throws to him, he's going to steal points. If Prescott throws a touchdown, Witten gets 6, Prescott gets 4. So it's actually going to boost Witten over Prescott. That's a great play. Demaryius Thomas versus Todd Gurley. I mean, come on. Todd Gurley's putting up 34 points a week. Demaryius Thomas, 11. So I have to give it to Todd Gurley. Tevin Coleman versus Jonathan Stewart. I'm going to have to give this one to Jonathan Stewart? Question mark? Tevin Coleman's good. He's really good, but he's going against a very good Carolina run defense with Luke Kuechly running in the middle of the field. He's got your numbers running back, so you better watch out. He's okay against the pass. He can definitely cut off the slot receiver and the short slants, the short end, stuff like that. So he's not really going to stop against the running backs, or excuse me, the wide receivers, but for the running backs, absolutely. So actually, I think I'm going to give this to Jonathan Stewart, which is somewhat of a bold prediction, but we'll see. Panthers versus Seahawks. I don't know. Panthers haven't been that great. Actually, excuse me. Panthers have been pretty good, and they're going against a pretty good Atlanta offense, and ranked 8th overall versus Seahawks going against Washington's 22. Giving it to the Seahawks. Bryant versus Vinatieri. They both kick footballs. So I think, looking at this, I believe this will be, number 1, game of the week. I think both of them will score a lot of points. Number 2, I think Josh is going to set a new record in the Mile High Champions League for longest winning streak. I just think that with Kenfield's players out, his top 3 players out, combined, Antonio Brown's been averaging 21 points per week. Tom Brady, 29.2. Ezekiel Elliott, 34. So Kenfield has, of his 145 points per week, half of them, roughly, more than half, have been coming from these 3 players. So with their absence, this is Josh's game to lose. Because Josh only has Brandon Cooks out. He's good. He's the 8th best wide receiver, but if he's averaging about 14 points, he's not missing him per se. So I think that this is Josh's game to lose. Watch this one. We might see some history being made. Let's go on to the next one. Nick versus Noel. 3-5. I said it last week, and it's even more true this week. You need to fucking win this game, both of you, or else your chances of making the playoffs pretty much non-existent. 6-6 teams have made the playoffs. 7-5 teams are more likely what you'll see in the playoffs. 8-4 are usually the cream of the crop for the league. Winning twice as many games as you lose is pretty much as best as you can hope for. 9-3, if you win 3 times as many, that's phenomenal. Rarely we've had a couple 4-2 and 11-1s, but 8-4 is pretty much what the best of the best in this league. So if you can make a 7-5 season, one of you can make the playoffs. 6-6, I don't think so. Let's look at this game here. Noel, you're predicted to win by about 18 points. 19. Hold on. Math is hard. 17.9 points. You're projected to get 129.5 to his 111.6. Let's look at the different matchups here. He's got the highest paid quarterback in the NFL versus the highest. What is he the highest of, Noel? Cam Newton.
I would say he's at least the most scrutinized, maybe prone to also some bouts of immaturity.
There you go. So the most bout prone to immaturity against the highest paid guy. So Stafford going against a decent Green Bay defense, 15th, even though we're telling Charlie not to start them, Charles. Against quarterbacks, they're okay. They're 15th. That's not too different from what Cam's going against. Atlanta's 14th. So for this one, Cam Newton, because he's been averaging just about a point more. So by a hair, by a very tiny hair, Cam Newton. Anderson versus Lamar Miller. CJ Anderson's good, but has been struggling. Lamar Miller is good, but it's questionable. So I still think because of the defensive matchups, 28th for Miller and 4th for Anderson, I got to give this one to Miller. Tyreek Hill against Larry Fitzgerald. Without Carson Palmer there, I have to give it to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the 3rd best wide receiver. He gets a lot of those points from just being, I would argue, the fastest player in the NFL right now. One of the fastest, at least. So he's doing very well. That's why they put him on the kicking team, and he gets bonus points for that. So I got to give it to him, especially since Fitzgerald has Drew the Shrew Stanton throwing to him. That's not an insult. I'm saying he's a shrewd money manager. So he's good with money. How about that? Travis Kelce versus Jack Doyle. Kelsey's good. He is good. He's number 1 overall for tight ends. He's averaging about 15.9 points to Jack Doyle's 10.9. I don't think Doyle's going to have another 32-point week. That is an outlier, to say the least. What might tip it more into Doyle's favor is that Kelsey's facing a tougher defense. He's facing the Dallas defense, who's 5th against the tight end position, versus Doyle is facing Houston's, which is 24th against the tight end. Des Bryant versus Joe Mixon. Both these guys have been averaging about 12 points. In the spirit of good competition, I'd say this is a toss-up, but in the spirit of picking versus flaking, I'm going to go with Joe Mixon, just because I think this is, as I've said ad nauseum on this podcast, it's a running back year. Kenyon Drake versus Aaron Jones. I guess he's starting Kenyon Drake in the absence of
Jay Ajayi. That could be a very bold pick. I'm impressed. I just noticed that.
Yeah, it could really pay off for him. It could blow up in his face. All right, no, without looking, guess how many points Kenyon Drake has scored through 8 weeks?
12.
It's the reverse of that, 21. That's pretty awesome. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it's only us, so you're it. Thank you, Noel. So, yeah, 21 points. So this is a roll of the dice. Kenyon Drake, I appreciate that, Nick. I really do. I think that's really awesome because you're at the point in your season where you're still in it. So you got to take risks if you want to win. And I really like this pick. I really like playing here, Kenyon Drake. Now, having said that, I'm going to pick Aaron Jones because there's more, I think, predictability with Aaron Jones than there is with Kenyon Drake. I think that Kenyon Drake could have a big game, could have a really big game, but that's a complete possibility, and I have no way of saying yes or no here. Jay Ajayi has been having a good season, certainly not the great season he had last year, but I don't think it's that automatically means because he's now the lead running back in Miami that he's automatically going to get superstar points. So I think he'll do well. I think he'll get double digits, but he's not going to get like 40 points or something like that. Ravens, number 1 defense, believe it or not, through 8 weeks versus the Rams, 3rd. They're number 3. Both of them are scoring a lot of points. Ravens are scoring 22. Rams are scoring 22. Both going against a bad offense. This is a real toss-up. Listen to this. Rams are scoring 22.5 on average. Excuse me. Ravens are scoring 22.5 on average. 2.4 on average. Ravens going against the 23rd best Tennessee offense. The Rams going against New York Giants, 24th. It doesn't get much more toss-up than that. They're giving the check mark to the Rams. I disagree. I actually think it should go to the Ravens. Harrison Butker and Graham Gano. Harrison Butker because he's got 9.5 points on average versus 8.4 for Graham Gano. Now, there's more consistency and stability on your team. No, there's more brand names on your team. There's more average points, I would say. There is more explosiveness on Nick's team. Travis Kelce could go off like he did in weeks 2 and 4 and 8 and get big points. Tyreek Hill could come back in big fashion. He had his worst week of the season last week. If he has a week like he did in week 1, 32 points, week 3, 21, week 5, 23, week 7, 31, he'll blow you out of the water. So I actually think it's up to the Chiefs to save Nick's week. If the Chiefs perform, Nick will win. If not, it's going to Noel. Noel will advance to 4-5. Nick will slide to 3-6. So I think, Noel, this is your game to win. I think that I'm going to overall pick you to win. But I do think the opportunity for Nick to best you is there. So the conviction I have in your win, Noel, is maybe 59-41. I do think you're going to win, but I do think Nick has an opportunity to really come nip you in the bud. All right, let's go on to the last 2 games. Noel, take it away.
All right. So in this matchup, we've got Molly's 5-second chug against Chuck's Redneck's Delight. And right now, it's tough to really gauge this game because both Molly and Charlie are starting players who are on buys this week. Plus, in case you're not listening, Charlie, please listen to some of my advice because, dear Lord. Anyways, okay, so Drew Brees gets the check mark over Tyrod Taylor, which I think is true. But I actually like Drew Brees a little bit more in this game because while I would have thought that, like, sort of hoped Cam Newton would have got more points against a just injury-riddled Tampa Bay defense that wasn't that good even before that, Carolina doesn't really have a whole lot of playmakers outside of Cam Newton. So there's not a lot of speed there. There's not a lot of kind of, which you would, for lack of a better term, home run hitters. But New Orleans has that. So I think that there should be a even bigger advantage for Drew Brees this week against Tyrod Taylor, who's playing a somewhat underrated, believe it or not, New York Jets defense. And then on to running backs. Of course, it's got to be LaShawn McCoy. He's 7th ranked running back in the league. And just, of course, that over even as good a season as rookie Alvin Kamara is having, it's going to be LaShawn McCoy over just about everybody, including basically 6 other people. From there, unfortunately I was actually texting with Molly about this. When I saw like a really long touchdown on my phone to begin the Seattle Houston game, I was going, that's got to be to Will Fuller because Will Fuller is unbelievably fast. So, as you said, Mike, with these feast or famine guys, Will Fuller fits the mold, and Indianapolis' defense is bad and slow. So I think the projected 12.4 points is probably, let's see, closer to the floor than what I think will actually happen. I think he'll either kind of get maybe 8 or 10 points, worst case scenario, or he'll fill it up for Molly here over Jeremy Maclin, who, as we've said, is just kind of hit or miss and on the down slope of his career. I like Cameron Brate in this game against New Orleans defense, which is okay, but not great. But I also like Charlie starting Jared Cook. Again, great pickup for you, Chuck. Averaging almost 9 points a game against, as we've said, a not great Miami defense. So 9.4 projection, pretty good. Julio Jones, maybe this is the week he breaks out. Maybe it's not. This, unfortunately, Steve Sarkisian, who took over play calling duties for Kyle Shanahan after Shanahan left for San Francisco, just isn't getting it done with really anybody on that offense. So I think I actually think this projection might be slightly incorrect because Frank Gore is going to get his touches, as were Julio Jones. They're probably going to bracket him and make other players beat them. So I disagree with Effentar there. LeGarrette Blount, even with the addition of Jay Ajayi, is supposed to be the guy still in Philadelphia, going against a Broncos defense, which was actually not bad against the run last week, but hasn't been solid against the run all year. LeGarrette Blount, however, is touchdown dependent. However, it's hard to judge because James White is not playing this week. On defenses, I think the Bills against the Jets is a very good matchup. I like that a lot. Texans against Indianapolis, I also like that a lot. From there, as you mentioned, Mike Gostkowski, who's just one of the best fantasy kickers of the past half a decade, is on a bye week. And Prater should have a good week against Green Bay, but I have a feeling Charlie might move Mason Crosby back into start, which don't do that, Charlie. If he does, I think that's going to tip it for basically whoever Molly starts. So assuming that Charlie starts Prater, I think I actually do think this is Molly's game to lose, even with the projection, but I think this is going to be a close one. So good luck to you both, because obviously we all need it at this point for those of us that aren't winning. But Charlie and myself, we need these wins so we cannot be in the basement. From there...
Nobody likes to be in the basement.
I live in my sister's basement. Oh my God, what the hell? Okay, so I just moved on to the final game of the week.
What the shit? Ben, start your team.
This one is impossible to judge. He might be tinkering with it right now. But for those of you, just in case you're not looking at this right now, at the moment that I'm doing this, and Mike and I are discussing it, Ben is only starting 4 players for his entire roster. So if to judge the matchup, we've got no one going up against Jameis Winston. So obviously the advantage goes to a warm body. And Jameis Winston is practicing. He's practicing limited. I also, because Vanessa's kind of confusing me so far this season. She has 3 quarterbacks. At least last I checked, she had 3 quarterbacks in her roster, one of which was Derek Carr. So maybe him over Jameis Winston, who's not feeling great, and as an offensive line, it's just not protecting him. From there, we move on to someone who there's actually the next 4 have actual matchups. So it's Carlos Hyde, who's going against a pretty good Arizona defense. And as we said before, he's just unfortunately playing for the 49ers with Captain Beefheart quarterbacking the team versus Kareem Hunt. Obviously, Kareem Hunt there. His worst game as a pro, as you said, Mike, last week at 14 points. And he's number 1 going against the Dallas defense, which I think this is one of these games where Casey is ripe for an upset, but Hunt's going to get his touches. And I think what kind of hurt them what hurt Hunt last week was that he kind of just, he gets his points because he wears defenses down. But that was a weird game because essentially what wore down the Broncos defense was Trevor Siemian. From there, we've got Mike Evans, who we discussed at length before, versus Crabtree. Who the hell knows? I think both these guys might score the same amount of points. Mike Evans has the nod. However, they're not that far apart as far as average goes. Crabtree can fill it up one week, as where, what's his face, Amari Cooper can fill it up, but they can also both disappear. Evans just has, he's more likely to get you 11 points than actually show up and get you 40 points. Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Okay, here we go. Is the superior matchup to Kyle Rudolph, who is not playing this week because he is on a bye. So that one's tough to judge. Amir Abdullah against Green Bay's surprisingly not terrible run defense, but I just don't know how long Amir Abdullah is going to be in the game, how many touches he's going to get. Jay Ajayi, however, I'm pretty sure is going to be kind of an afterthought this week. So while I don't agree with the 17.1 point projection for Amir Abdullah, I think it's going to be a lot more than whatever Jay Ajayi is going to get. And from there, we've got fun because, let's see, Tyler Kroft versus no one. I think we've got to go with Tyler Kroft. Broncos defense versus no one. Although Philly's defense or offense isn't anything to shake a stick at, but they're still somebody. Steven Hauschka, 6-right kicker against Ben's no kicker. So I'm gonna go out on a limb, and at the moment, but don't hold me to this, please. I'm gonna give this one to Vanessa, just because she has players playing, as opposed to Ben, who's got no one. Well, not no one. He's got half a team. I'm actually going to hit reset and see if anything happens.
Ben?
Reload.
Here's hoping you start somebody.
Oh, no, he didn't do anything. But, yeah. Ben, let's hope you got some magic up your sleeve because you're like me. You need this win. And I think with the unfortunate hand that Vanessa's just had some bad luck this year. So I think if you can dial up the right players, Ben, this can be you can eke out a win which you desperately need. But right now, I do see Le'Veon Bell, Steelers defense, Phillip Rivers, and Chris Boswell are on buys. But and he's also got Pierre Garçon's roster. He's just not choosing to start him.
Okay. Well, Noel, thank you very much for that. We have a fun final third of the season left here. I think we'll have it'll be very interesting. We have some clear winners and we have some clear laggards, but this is the time of the year where things really heat up and it's really fun to watch the games, especially as things cool down. You may not be hanging out outside as much. You might not be doing as much yard work. You may just be spending your Sundays, as you should be as a red-blooded American, watching football. So with that, we move on to the final poll. I'm just curious, what's been your greatest headache through 8 weeks? Has it been bye weeks? Has it been injuries or just the fantasy gods taking a shit on you? Let me know. Just curious what's been going on with your season. Everyone's had their own problems, maybe except for Josh because he's 8-0, but everyone else has had something to bitch about with their season. So with that, we move on to the final part of our show. Anything else you want to add?
Not really, although another trade to note, and this is going to benefit Courtney probably the most. Dwayne Brown, Pro Bowl level, all-pro level left tackle for the Houston Texans, has been traded to the Seattle Seahawks. So this should allow Russell Wilson to actually pass the ball without having to run for his life as much. So congratulations, Courtney, maybe. I don't know. And as always, go Broncos. God damn it, Brock Osweiler's starting.
Go Broncos indeed. And we will catch you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you had a good time as we did. Go Broncos.